Fascinating, Mika, to watch the way Republicans have handled this in the last 24 hours, much more focused on the leak than the potential decision on Roe versus Wade. The strategy, part of a memo of talking points from the Senate Republicans' campaign arm to be, quote, compassionate on abortion policy. A sample statement reads this way. This is a draft opinion, so we will wait to see.
Hold on. Willie, did you just say the Republicans' position was to be compassionate on abortion policy?
Yes.
Was this Rick Scott, the same guy who said we need to tax poor people to be fair?
Yes, this is their talking point anyway, and we're about to hear the highest reaches of Republican leadership echo it again and again and again. This memo from the campaign arm reads in part this way. This is a draft opinion, so we'll wait to see what the final decision of the Supreme Court is in the coming months. The leak of this document is troubling and indicative of the radical left's mission to undermine the institution of the Supreme Court. It's wrong.
That's the worst part.
And the leaker should be found, fired, and potentially prosecuted. So the assumption that they're making and what they're saying out loud is that this was leaked by a Democrat, by a progressive of some kind. We have no evidence of that whatsoever. So here are Republicans now staying yesterday on that message.
Whoever did this leak should be prosecuted and should go to jail for a very long time.
I don't know who did it. I hope we find out, because the person or persons who did it really struck a blow against the rule of law.
Do you take personal credit for abortion rights likely to go away for millions of people in this country?
Yeah, I think the story today is an effort by someone on the inside to discredit the institution of the Senate.
Republicans are also assuming, without evidence, that the leak came from the left. Yesterday, a reporter offered Senator Ted Cruz another possible scenario. Here's part of that conversation.
Senator, why do you presume that this was a liberal clerk who leaked this? Do you have information that suggests that?
Because I'm not a moron. Because I live on planet Earth.
Well,
because
Senator,
well, you can ask your question, but you don't
asking
get to
if you have
interrupt.
evidence. Go ahead.
Because this is obviously an attempt from someone who is unhappy about the direction the court is going to put political pressure on the justices to change their outcome. That is the only reason this gets leaked. And you know that. Come on, you're a reporter in Washington, D.C.
Can I offer you a different scenario?
Sure, let me hear your spin.
That was the reflection of a previous draft. One of the justices changed their views, and that a conservative who supported the original decision wants to lock them back in. That's a completely reasonable scenario, isn't it?
You know what? I find that ludicrous, but if it's the case, maybe you'll win a Pulitzer for that.
Well, actually, it's not ludicrous at all. I do agree with Ted Cruz, Senator Cruz, that this was leaked by somebody who was unhappy in the direction that the court was going. But the question is, which person on the court was moving, and what direction were they moving? You see, the right-wing noise machine always turns into overdrive, always. And you saw that. By the way, I've just got to say, a compassionate abortion policy from Rick Scott, Lindsey Graham, and the Republican Party, when you have all of these states that are going to actually have no exceptions for rape, no exceptions for incest, no exceptions for the mental health of the mother. I mean, it's shocking. And they're talking about compassion. No, they always kick into overdrive whenever the subject of the U.S. Supreme Court comes into play, especially abortion. And they moved quickly to shift the blame from Monday's Supreme Court leak on those crazy people on the left. Those crazy people on the left. The Wall Street Journal editorial page suggested it was enraged Democrats leaking the document for political gain in November. What a plotting, nonsensical argument on so many levels. Wouldn't it actually be better if anybody actually knows how politics works at the Wall Street Journal editorial page, to let the opinion come out later, closer to the election, have the explosion? So the story's not about the leak. The story's actually about this radical decision. And it's later in the summer, it's closer to the elections, and it motivates people that much more. Of course, that makes perfect sense. But of course, there was nothing that made sense about right-wingers' argument yesterday. Other right-wing law professors actually bemoaned, you're going to love this, they bemoaned the crazy radicals that are being produced from elite Ivy schools like Yale. Does that law professor mean like the crazy law students and crazy undergrads who graduated from elite institutions who led an insurrection against the United States government on January 6th? Those crazy Ivy Leaguers? Or maybe it was J.D. Vance, a guy who spews conspiracy theories, stabs Ukraine in the back, and demands that the federal government seizes the assets of the Ford Foundation because they are insufficiently conservative. Of course not. They weakly blame liberal clerks on the court because of how radicalized Democrats have come over the last few years about the Supreme Court. Now, I want you to think about this. They actually, I don't know how they do this. I'll be honest with you. I know them. I was in the party for years. What was I thinking? But these people, these are the same people that stood and gave standing ovations to Ginny Thomas and Clarence Thomas. How quaint that Ginny Thomas's ideological brothers and sisters are delivering lectures on how the left wing has politicized the court. Can you believe that BS? Suggesting that the left would be more likely to leak the draft opinion because they don't respect the court or its rules. Oh, really? Like Clarence Thomas being involved in cases that directly impact his wife and her text messages? If only the left could show the restraint of Ginny and Clarence Thomas, Lindsey Graham, and the rest of the GOP. Oh, what a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful world it would be. The plotting argument that Alito's majority had no reason to leak the court's decision assumes it was still the majority 3 months after it was written in February. It's more likely that somebody on the hard right was really pissed off that a justice moved away from Alito's really harsh right-wing diatribe on abortion and instead moved more towards Robert's way. It was a classic, hey, we've got the receipts, buddy. Don't even think about moving away from Alito and taking a more nuanced, reasonable path, because we have the receipts. And, you know, maybe that may be why the Chief Justice's statement started with a declaration that the leaked document, quote, does not represent a decision by the court or the final position of any member on the issues in this case. You know, to me, I could be wrong. Maybe Ted's right, maybe I'm wrong. But if you're just looking at this in the most Machiavellian way possible, it makes far more sense that it was a fanatical law clerk on the right who leaked the document to stop one of the conservative members of the court from moving away from Alito's position and closer to Robert's more nuanced path toward a still radical destination.